1961. Unmistakably new. Unmistakably Thunderbird. Notice, it's not a hair wider nor a tenth of an inch longer than Thunderbirds you've known before. It is simply more Thunderbird than ever.
If your shifter looks like this, you likely have a worn detent that needs replacing. Start by pulling off the cap and using a 15/16 socket to remove the center nut. Thankfully, the steering wheel and shaft are already scribed, so you won't have to mark anything. The steering wheel puller uses 5/16 24 bolts. Next, we remove the turn signal stock, turning it counterclockwise. There are flat spots on the stock for our 3/16 wrench. I happen to have pliers close by. Remove the screws holding the plastic shift indicator. Pry up and remove the shift indicator light access plate. Remove the two outer screws and move the indicator out the way. Be careful not to drop these screws into the column. Then the middle screw, which holds down the black shift indicator plate. Remove the plate. Next is this tiny horseshoe nut. It slides off with a little compression on the spring. I recommend you put a rag over the top as you're removing in case it tries to fly off. Underneath the plate are 3 screws covering a snap ring that we will have to remove. If you have snap ring pliers, it'll be a lot easier, but if not, you can use some small flatheads to pry the clip off. Unscrew 2 of the black nuts that hold the chrome shift flange. The bolts have square heads that secure the chrome housing to the column body, so be sure you don't lose those on the other end. You might have to unscrew the turn signal switch to give yourself more slack to pull on the chrome shift flange. Carefully hammer out the shifter retainer pin using a center punch. Then wiggle out the lever. Check out how worn the old one is. I'm fairly certain this was the original from 1961. There are 2 screws holding the detent plate. New one seems to have a different design. Don't lose these guys. This step isn't necessary, but I decided to grease up the parts before assembly. Wiggle in your new shifter and carefully center punch the new pin in. The square head bolts will go behind the assembly in their slots. You can use a thumb to hold one in place while pushing it outward as you screw on the nut. Here's a picture that better shows where they go to. Okay, there's one. There we go. Reinstall the signal switch. Reinstall new snap ring. The size is 3/4. I just slipped the ring over and lightly tapped it with a small flathead until it was seated. At this point, it's just screwing everything else back on. If you get the plate cover dirty, you can safely clean it with glass cleaner, which will remove grease and fingerprint oils. Align your plate and then tighten the screws as you hold it in place. Make sure everything lines up and works perfectly. Our cars are open differential, so if one side isn't spinning, confirm that the other side is. If neither wheels are spinning, you might have to adjust your transmission linkage. Also, check your neutral start switch under the steering column. The copper contact points were badly worn down on mine, causing it to not start when in park. If your car isn't starting when it's in park, or your reverse lights are constantly on or not at all, you might have a neutral switch issue. You also shouldn't have to push up on the shifter to start your car. It should simply start by turning the key in park or neutral regardless of the steering wheel's position. It's only held in by 2 bolts, and you adjust it by shifting the car into park and turning the key as if you were trying to start the car. Then you move the switch on the column till it actually starts. Once you know where the sweet spot is, tighten it down. Check that your reverse lights come on when you shift into reverse as well. While you're down there, check that these wires aren't being pinched. When I was done with the repair, I noticed the shifter light indicator wire gets pinched easily as you shift into D1 and low. It actually caused the car to pop a fuse, which caused the interior and brake lights to not work. I went ahead and wrapped the wire in some electrical tape and extended it so it wouldn't cause any future issues. And we're finally done.